the Republic fleet is on the defensive and pushed to the brink. As war rages in the much-contested Outer Rim territories, chaos and fear mount as the Separatist army rages in epic battle against heavily outnumbered Republic ships. In the far reaches of the Quell system, Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan Ahsoka race across the galaxy to aid Jedi Knight Aayla Secura, who is in the midst of a fight for her life as the sinister droid army closes in.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tigar. Welcome to the 38th Starship Crashing episode of Mando Vision. Nargai Tom. And thank you so much for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Remember, the best way to reach out to us is via social media at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. Please feel free to email the show at mandovisiontom@gmail.com. And also, hey, while you're at it, make sure you're liking, subscribing, and sharing the show with all the other Mandalorians in your covert. If you're listening on Apple Podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, please help us out with some sweet 5-star reviews. They help independent small podcasts like us, or I should say small independent podcasts like us, stand out and not get lost in the shuffle of all that amazing content that exists out there on the internet. Remember, we are part of the 3BZ network of podcasts. Head over to 3BZ.com. You'll find links to all the shows on the network, including Beer Night in San Diego, the Tomcast Popcast, our pop culture-centered popcast, and of course, this fine Star Wars podcast, Mandovision. We also have a store MD page if you want to head over there and check out some of the sweet merch we're selling. Check it out. Good stuff over there. Hey, we're back. We're ready to dive in to Season 1, Episode 13 of Star Wars The Clone Wars. This is Jedi Crash. Its original air date was January 16th, 2009. And this is an episode I'm really excited to get into because it's the series debut of another one of my favorite Jedis. Jedi, I don't think she's a master at this point, but she's Jedi Knight Aayla Secura. One of my personal favorites. And I think one of the neat things about Aayla in general is that she was a character who was brought to life in the comic book first, in the back when Dark Horse had the license and they were publishing their Star Wars Republic comics. She was created by artist Jan Drosema and writer John Ostrander to be one of the Jedis featured in that book. She had several really good comic book arcs. She was the former Padawan of Master Quinlan Vos, who I'm pretty darn sure we see later in this show, if I remember correctly. But another character who made the leap from comic books to the animated series. So I always thought that was really neat. And she was a character. Also, I should say, first and foremost, when she was created for that comic book, George Lucas himself saw the designs on that character and was like, I like that. And he brought her into the live action movies, into Episode 2 in particular, into Attack of the Clones. We see her walking around the Jedi Temple. We see her at the Battle of Geonosis. So a character whose design was so striking that George Lucas was like, hey, we're taking that comic book character, we're bringing it to the movies. So that's a pretty cool testament to those creators. Again, Jan Drosema was the artist, and John Ostrander is the writer who put the words into Ayla's mouth in the comic book series. And again, if you could go back and read those comic books, or if you find those comic books, really good stuff in that series. Marvel now has the license for all the Star Wars books, being that Disney and Marvel are one and the same. But a lot of those Dark Horse books have all been collected into giant trade paperbacks. They are considered legends. They do have that Legends banner on them now. But the stories are still really good. A lot of the stuff that Dark Horse was doing leading up to the Clone Wars and chronicling the Clone Wars, really good stuff in there. Again, a lot of it is, considered legends and doesn't quite jive with some of the canon that we're going to get to in Star Wars The Clone Wars. But something really neat. And again, I read the comic books when they came out, so I was familiar with Aayla Secura when she debuted, when she made the transition to Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and then obviously to the Clone Wars. So again, a character I've liked since I first saw her as well. Again, a very striking, distinct Jedi Knight from the ones who are hooded and just spouting off crazy Jedi mysticism. Ayla's a little bit different than that, and she's a Twi'lek. They got the head tails, whole distinct look going on. Again, you will definitely recognize her, and if you don't, off the top of your head, by the time you watch this episode, you will know her quite well. We'll talk a little bit more about her role in this episode as we kind of get into it. But before we dive into the episode proper, before we can kind of start doing our review, our breakdown, we have to do something, the most important thing that we can do on this podcast. We have to strap on our buckets. Let's go.
This is taking too long. Destroy that cruiser.
But sir, there are still hundreds of droids on board.
I don't care.
Roger, roger.
Okay, we have a little background on Aayla Secura now, but let's get into the episode proper. Remember, we're reviewing Season 1, Episode 13 of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This is Jedi Crash. Original air date was January 16th, 2009. Our plot for the episode: Anakin is injured while rescuing Aayla Secura from super battle droids equipped with rocket packs. Ahsoka crash lands their shuttle on the neutral planet of Moradin, where the native Lurman villagers refuse to take sides in the war. This episode is directed by Rob Coleman, and we have a plot written by Katie Lucas, Scott Murphy, and Henry Gilroy handling the scripting duties on this episode. Our voice cast, we have, once again, reprising her role as Ahsoka Tano, Ashley Eckstein. Aayla Secura is voiced by Jennifer Hale. Jennifer Hale, for anyone out there who is a video game nerd, you may know her most famously as the female Commander Shepard from the Mass Effect series. So Jennifer Hale gets to bring her vocal talents to the Star Wars galaxy by being Aayla Secura in this episode. And interestingly enough, with a French accent. So that's an interesting little feature that the vocal work of Aayla Secura has, is a little bit of a French accent going on. Matt Lanter's back as Anakin Skywalker, D. Bradley Baker once again as the Clone Troopers, Captain Rex, and Commander Bly. Tom Kane is the narrator and Admiral Yularen. George Coe as Tiwat Ka, one of the Lurman village leader, the elder, if you will. Alec Medlock as Wang Tu, who's Tiwat Ka's son. There you go. And Matthew Droid is back as the battle droids and the tactical droid, who is leading the attack at the beginning of the episode. Our Jedi fortune cookie for this episode: greed and fear of loss are the roots that lead to the tree of evil. And again, attachment and fear of losing those attachments, a big theme recurring throughout the series and for our Jedi characters. Particularly, obviously, the main emphasis is on Anakin, but as his Padawan, and a young Padawan at that, Ahsoka, and the way she is developing attachments, and the way, because of what she sees from her master. And again, that this will continue to play out over the course of the series, but we start to see that her bond to Master Skywalker already, to her master, Anakin Skywalker. Again, he's not a master yet, but it's very unique. It's very interesting to see how that is shaping and taking form as the series has progressed thus far, and that despite their rocky beginning to their relationship, Anakin and Ahsoka are bonded together. They're bonded to one another. The master apprentice bond is strong with them, and this is the first time Ahsoka's had to be challenged to show that Jedi detachment, to place her feelings aside for the betterment of the mission and of Anakin in this case, and we'll talk about that as it shakes out. All right, as we open our episode, I have to give credit where credit's due. This is an incredible opening action sequence. I mean, this is really like top-notch Star Wars combat stuff right here. Like this, Ayla's on her ship. She's under attack from the Separatists. It does not look good. Things are not going her way. They're launching super battle droids with rockets on them, rocket packs, I should say, not just Anakin has to come in, save the day, hopefully. But it's really just a really well done a combat sequence, a really great stretch of action. There's a little bit of dialogue here and there, but it's a lot of it is just, Anakin running, chopping droids, flying through the sky, grabbing a battle droid. It's a really, really well executed sequence. I really, really dug the way this episode opens and how it just throws you into the middle of the action right away. I thought that was really, really well done. And a special shout out to Kevin Kiner, who's doing the music on this episode, because it's so good and intense, like right off the bat. Like I said, you really feel like you're into it from the moment we get there. Oh man, it's just a pulse pounding opening, and I was really, this was an episode I sort of kind of remembered. I didn't remember thinking as highly of it as I did on this rewatch from the first time around. I remembered mostly the stuff in the second half of the episode, but this opening is really great, really, really strong, and I was into it from the moment we get there. And again, a lot of stuff going on with the battle droids. We have like that tactical droid who's commanding the fleet. He's very mean, as you heard from the clip. He's very mean. He doesn't care about killing other droids. So that's always kind of a fun thing to see. Droids wanting to kill other droids as long as it achieves their goals. It was very interesting. We are introduced to Commander Bly in this episode as well, who is Ayla's clone commander of her division of clone troopers. We do see Commander Bly in Revenge of the Sith. He is the commander who, when Order 66 comes through, execute Order 66. When that command is issued, Bly is the one. He and his troopers are the one who do not hesitate and shoot Aayla Secura in the back about 4,700 times. So the interesting thing about that, I'm assuming we've all seen the run of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and we watched the most recent batch of episodes. This final season that came on Disney Plus earlier, or I guess later in 2020, because we saw how Order 66 affected Commander Rex, and how he was able to fight through that with the help of Ahsoka and things of that, and that whole relationship that they have, that sort of bond that they have. And this is an episode, again, we from the Jedi fortune cookie, greed and fear of loss are the roots that lead to the tree of evil. But in one sense, I sort of had to wonder, because Rex and Ahsoka are so bonded with each other, especially by season 7, when we get to that final episode and the order is issued and Rex is able to overcome that. We'll just put it that I don't want to give too much away, but Rex is able to go through that, overcome that, get around that, work around that, whatever you want to call it. And we have Aayla Secura, who is sort of like the embodiment of Jedi detachment. And yes, sure, her and Bly serve together, but they clearly don't have the same kind of relationship or connection that Ahsoka and Rex did, or even Anakin and Rex did. By the tail end of the series. So Bly's lack of hesitation to put a couple rounds of blaster fire into her back. I wonder if there's something that speaks to that. Like perhaps if Aayla wasn't so good at the Jedi art of detachment, would that have changed for her? Would that have altered her fate if her and Bly had more of a I don't want to say like familial relationship, but I mean, beyond just general and commander, beyond just being a soldier and a I didn't want to say servant. That was the word that came to mind, but I don't want to say that because it's not the right word. But you know what I mean? Subordinate. That's a better word. It just makes one of those things that makes you wonder if, again, the Jedi's undoing was brought about by a lot of their own actions, and perhaps the detachment was one element that the Jedi never had really considered being part of their downfall. So I thought that was an interesting aspect because, like I said, Commander Bly is the one who shoots Aayla in the back in Revenge of the Sith. But it's great to see him in the Clone Wars series, and again, that's another element of the show that I like so much, is that clones that get a handful of seconds of screen time in episodes, and mostly in Episode 3, prominently featured in the animated series. So I mean, this will not be the first time we hear more names that we know from that series. We already talked about Commander Kree, who attempted to kill Yoda on Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith. So again, it's just kind of an interesting way that they that Dave Filoni and George Lucas kind of bring it all together, bring it back to the films, and have one lead into the other. All right, so they're attempting to flee Ayla's ship. It's in bad shape. It's going to go down. And Anakin gets injured while saving the others. Ayla's cruiser is destroyed. And the rescue ship that Anakin sent over to retrieve them all, when I say all, I mean like Bly and Ayla. The rest of the troops on that cruiser, I guess, are SOL, or perhaps they've already lost their lives. It's a little hard to say, but let's not consider that a quirk of the episode. Let's just say that is what it is. So the ship carrying Ayla, Ahsoka, and Anakin accidentally enters hyperspace, in atmosphere no less, which I thought was interesting because hyperspace is kind of going through some radical exploration right now in the High Republic series, and for a long time in the old expanded universe, that was something you couldn't do. You couldn't enter hyperspace in the atmosphere of a planet. We've seen that not be the case in Rise of Skywalker, and we're seeing it in Star Wars: The Clone Wars too. It is one of those little things that I still bump up against, even though maybe it's not considered to be part of the canon anymore. I've always considered the hyperspace was something that you had to be in actual space to do because of sort of the way they've explained it as you're entering sort of a different dimension. I just don't know enough about it to comment on it too much. But for a long time there was hard set rules that hyperspace you could not enter in the planet in the atmosphere of a planet. I think it had something to do with gravity wells specifically. But interesting to see it used here because it does come up in Rise of Skywalker, and when they use it in Rise of Skywalker is one of the things that annoyed me the most right off the bat. But we'll talk about that another time. We don't need to go down that diatribe. So they enter hyperspace without having the coordinates entered correctly. They take off for an unknown destination, and hey, it's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. Again, and this is how we close out this wonderful action sequence that we've opened the show with. I mean, we're only like 7-8 minutes into the show, and a really great action sequence. I also like, by the way, I kind of want to call them AAA in this episode because you have Ayla, Ahsoka, and Anakin. This is our Jedi trio. I just want to call them AAA. They would be a really fun group in wrestling. The AEW or the WWE, whichever one you prefer, or both. It's okay. Or if you're old like me, you can even say WCW. That'd be fine too. They'd be a great tag team, is what I'm trying to get at. Great, cool. They'd go up against the NWO all the time. It'd be phenomenal. It'd be phenomenal. So Anakin's injuries render him unconscious, and he's mostly unconscious through this episode, which is a unique way to explore the attachment angle because Ahsoka wants to be by his side, wants to help him see to it that he recovers and gets back on his feet again. And that's sort of the angle of exploration that we go through with Ahsoka's attachment to Anakin. While they're on the ship, you will probably notice that Anakin is hooked up to a device helping him breathe, regulating his breathing. You'll hear it. Darth Vader. You hear the Darth Vader oxygen respiration noises. A little glimpse of Anakin's future right there, though he's unconscious, so he's probably not even hearing it. But maybe that's just how all the oxygen respirators sound in Star Wars. I mean, everyone could sound like Darth Vader if they wanted to, right? No, that's weird. Let's not go there. Let's just say it's a hint of things to come for Anakin, all right? Ahsoka is eventually able to get the ship out of hyperspace. They avoid crashing into a star, and then they crash on the planet Moradin.
Well, we're not going to crash into the star, but we're definitely going to hit that planet.
All right, so I had to play that clip of Ahsoka commenting because it's a pretty harrowing scene getting the ship out of hyperspace because of the circumstances. We didn't talk about the ship didn't just accidentally enter hyperspace. There was an accident. There was a malfunction of equipment. A trooper was killed and crashed into the console. So the ship's not working correctly. So it's rather harrowing for them to get out of hyperspace because they are about to crash into a star, which is bad news. So they do a lot of Jedi stuff and some careful piloting, and it's a good. Again, it kind of continues that great action sequence from the beginning of the episode, just to get out of hyperspace, and then that's when they crash on Moradin. Now, once they crash, they kind of get settled in. They're gonna have to explore the planet. They're gonna have to get help for They're gonna have to get help for Anakin, and we get kind of the beginning of the attachment angle to explore. So I want to go ahead and play that scene for everybody while I have it queued up now, because it's good stuff. It's, this is we didn't say it earlier, but this is a 2-part episode, and so the attachment angle plays heavily in this first part, and you get hints of it in the second one. It's something. It's not quite a fully baked concept in the episode, a fully baked theme, but it's something that Ahsoka has to be made aware of by Aayla, and it's something that Ahsoka has to kind of process on her own. There's no quick resolution to it, but we start planting the seeds of that in this episode in particular. So let's go ahead and play that clip. Here we go.
Anakin doesn't have much time. We have to find help tonight.
Okay. You and Bly go south. Rex and I will stay here with Anakin.
No, Ahsoka. In order to get help quickly, we must work together.
I can't leave him. Master, I know if I was hurt, he'd never leave me behind.
I know this is hard, Ahsoka. But Anakin has to stay behind, and we have to go now. There's nothing more we can do for him. We must do all we can to get off this planet. As a Jedi, it is your duty to do what is best for the group.
General Secura, look.
All right, this is when they find out there are inhabitants on this planet, and it's time to go off and get that help that they need to get Anakin out of danger. And in case I didn't say it, Anakin's injuries, he got blowed up. He got blowed up real good. But he did it to save the others. So, badly injured on the planet. They're going to go off. They're going to get attacked by giant acorns from a tree. It's fun. Don't worry. It plays out. This is right before we meet the Lurmen, who are the inhabitants of the planet. Rex protects Anakin from these predatory creatures in the jungle, not the jungle, but in the high grasses of Moradin. And I looked it up. These animals, these creatures are called Mastiff Phalones. Phalones. It's a PH. I could be saying it way wrong, but kind of an interesting looking creature for sure. They definitely look menacing, and they seem to be hunting in packs. Make a lot of strange sounds. Rex is able to hold off one, but they come back later in the episode in greater numbers. Then on their way to the Lurmen village, Aayla and Ahsoka are also attacked by the same creatures. We reach the Lurmen village, who listen. Let's just put it on Front Street. They're kind of like lemurs. They look a lot like lemurs. They kind of talk. They're talking lemurs. Okay, it is what it is. They reach the Lurmen village. They find out that the Lurmen have no interest in aiding the Jedi in a cause of war. They don't want the Separatists there. They don't want to be part of the war at all. They want to remain neutral. They don't want to take sides in the conflict. But they can't ignore the village elder. Cannot deny a plea for help. So he sends the elder sends his son, who is the village healer, to go and help Anakin. So another one of the themes that comes through in the episode is sort of how violence begets violence, and the wrongness of war, basically. And there's a bit of a philosophical debate between the village elder and Aayla Secura here, and I wanted to go ahead and play that clip as well, because I sort of like this. It's not a debate necessarily, but I like the Lurmen's sort of philosophy on this situation, and it gets a little bit more fully developed in part 2, which will be in our show next time. But I like the episodes where we're seeing these people, the normal, everyday citizens of the galaxy, basically, and how they're just trying to go about living their lives without the war ruining their lives. So it's an interesting perspective to see. Like, they're on this planet. It makes it in part 2, they make it sound like this is not their native planet, that there's some kind of like colony, if you will. So it seems like they maybe have gone out of their way to avoid the war. Perhaps the war already came to their home planet. They don't really allude to that very often, or very much. And so I'm a little curious where some of this information comes from. It's the only thing that makes a little bit of sense, because they're very low tech here in the Lurmen village. They're living in these giant acorns. They've repurposed these giant acorns into housing units, and they live off the land. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of high technology going on. They just they seem to again to live off the land and to prosper from the land itself. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of tech, not a lot of communication devices, none of that. So they probably don't have the holonet. They wouldn't know. In theory, they wouldn't know much about the war at all. So my suspicion is that they are a group of Lurmans who left their planet either because it was something happened with the war there, or they're just attempting to avoid it altogether. Like this is a small tribe of Lurmen who, in order to avoid the ravages of the war, have gone someplace remote and desolate and isolated, so that the war can't come to them. Yet here come these Jedi strolling into their village, looking for help. So again, I sort of like this everyman perspective of a galactic civil war that is more about politics than it is about the people. And again, that's a theme that will continue to get explored more, especially I think in season 2 or season 3 when we start meeting other characters. I don't want to say too much in case people are watching this for the first time with us on the podcast, but we meet some other characters who will show us that point of view and a radically different approach to it than we're getting with the Lurmen here. But let's go ahead and play this scene where the village elder comes out to meet Aayla and Ahsoka and Commander Bly.
What have you come here for?
We are peacekeepers. We are Jedi from the Galactic Republic. Our ship crashed a few miles away and one of us is very badly injured. We need your help.
Violence breeds violence. Jedi are no peacekeepers.
We're fighting for freedom.
And freedom and peace require fear and death? We colonized this system to find solace from your wretched war. We came here to find peace.
There it is.
You must leave. You will only destroy what small amount of peace is left in the galaxy. You will only bring the destruction of us.
Regardless of the Clone Wars and our part in them, we still need your help.
I'm afraid I must do what's best for my people. We cannot help you.
Please, can you at least give us some medical supplies? My friend is dying.
I cannot ignore a plea for help. I will send my son, Wag-2, to help your friend. He is a healer, but only one Jedi may go with him. The other must stay, as insurance. We wouldn't want a surprise attack on our village, or the kidnapping of our only healer.
Bly and I will stay. Padawan, go and help your master.
No, the clone and his blaster cannot stay. He will go with the youngling.
I can handle it. I don't need help.
Ahsoka,
Don't worry.
be mindful of your surroundings, Padawan.
Okay, there we go. I let that run a little bit long, but okay, they answered my own questions right there. I guess sometimes when I'm taking notes of the episode, I might miss a piece of dialogue. And yes, they have come to this planet to avoid the war, so they are aware of the war. They are aware of the Jedi, of the Separatists, but they're trying to avoid it. They don't want to be a part of it. Why did the Lormans sound Irish? I don't know. It's Star Wars. They love other people's accents, so you get an Irish accent and a French accent talking to each other in this one. And again, I sort of like this philosophical debate. Jesus, Louise, almost couldn't say my words there. I have one more piece of dialogue I want to play from the episode because it's Aayla attempting to talk to the village elder about the Jedi's role and why he shouldn't see them as villains in the wars here. So let's go ahead and play this little section of clip 2. I did like this quite a bit.
It will restore your energy.
Thank you. I am sure you are aware that the Jedi did not initiate the Clone Wars. Our only intention is to end it and restore peace to our galaxy.
What difference does it make who started the war and who only wants to end it? No side is free of fault. It takes two to fight.
But isn't liberty worth fighting for?
But is it worth killing for? Fighting for something doesn't necessarily mean you have to destroy everything in your path. Only when you lay your arms down and pursue a course of non-violence can you make this claim to me that the Jedi are peacekeepers.
And this is something that gets tested to the letter in the next episode, and we'll have to explore that debate a little bit more fully because there is I don't want to say it's a contradiction, but the philosophical battle comes to a head, and there's one side and the other side, and in the middle the two do not really meet. So it'll be interesting to talk about that. Meanwhile, Anakin is still unconscious with Rex. They have staved off the attacks of the massive Felones over the night. Ahsoka and Wag-2 are racing back to the camp with Commander Bly. They are also being attacked, but hey, that's what happens. You got these dangerous predators in this high grass, and they attack. And by the way, Wag-2 rolls, which I thought was an interesting way of him getting around quickly, because these Lurmans are rather small. But it's interesting that they have a sort of rolling way of getting around town. And they arrive back at the camp just in time to help fend off a wave of Mastiffs from Anakin and Rex. There's like 3 or 4 of them, and Wag-2 plays a big part in defending, protecting, and but it's sort of it's interesting. You have to watch the way Wag-2 sort of does his thing. It's all very I don't want to say like non-violent, but it's not aggressive. It's not blaster based, or he's not grabbing lightsabers. Wag-2's like using ropes, and he's like securing the creatures. So there's sort of again, it's a bit of that sort of pacifist belief in that, yeah, we're gonna make sure these creatures don't kill you, but we're not gonna kill these creatures because like there's no purpose in that. So and once Wag-2 gets there, he's gonna render aid to Anakin. He's gonna help Anakin get better, so that by the next episode we can get into some more Star Warsian stuff. If that makes any sense at all. I do want to play the last little bit of the episode for you here, between Ahsoka and Aayla Secura, right before we close it out. I should also mention that it's at this point too that they have moved Anakin to the Lurman village, so everyone is now within in the folds of the village, despite the fact that the clones couldn't stay there before with their blasters, but I guess it's okay now, and probably because they're rendering aid to Anakin at this point. At least that's my assumption based on that. So I want to go ahead and play this last clip of between Ahsoka and Aayla. I thought this was a good one. We're kind of going back to exploring Ahsoka's attachment to Anakin, and this is where it's going to kind of leave us. It's not like a cliffhanger necessarily, but our heroes are still stranded on Moradin, and they have no way of communicating, no way of signaling for help. No signs that there's any other life on the planet with the starship. So they're going to be in a bit of a pickle when we pick things up in the next episode. But let's go ahead and play this final clip.
You were right all along, Master Secura.
About what?
If I'd stayed with Anakin, we probably wouldn't have found this village in time to save him. At least this whole ordeal is over now.
We still have to find a way off this planet.
Well, I'm sure Admiral Yularen and the Republic fleet are looking for us. It shouldn't take them too long to get here.
All right, that's where we close this one out at, folks. So a solid enough episode. I really love the beginning of the episode. The opening action sequences are pretty top notch. The story becomes a little bit more low key in the second half. As once we've crashed into Moradin, and our biggest threat is the predators that are attacking our heroes, and obviously Anakin's injuries. I like the beginning of the exploration of this sort of philosophical debate between about the nature of war and the right and wrongness on both sides, and then the role of the sort of pacifists who don't want to be involved, the ones who want to stay neutral, stay out of the conflict because of their ideologies about warfare and fighting in general. It's interesting. I don't know if they explore it to its fullest, because I mean, this is Star Wars. It is an animated series. It's not going to be rife with philosophical debate But I like that they're bringing these issues and they are exploring these issues to a certain degree. Like I said, when we get into part 2, the two sides well, those divides are still there, but some will be forced to make decisions that they don't want to make. But are they the right decisions or are they the wrong decisions? Again, that'll be something we explore in the next episode of Mando Vision. I want to thank you all so much for listening. This has been our review of Season 1, Episode 13, Jedi Crash. And I rate this episode, I give this a solid 7.5. I mean, mostly on the strength of that opening action sequence. But I enjoy episodes that force Jedi to confront faults in their ideology, in their philosophy, or maybe not even faults, but just like different perceptions of their actions and of their beliefs. And I think that's always interesting. And there's one thing that we've learned from the Jedi is that maybe they're on the side of right, but it doesn't mean that they're doing the right thing all the time. And sort of following their creed and their no attachments, and these are all interesting things to explore within the Jedi philosophy. And maybe at some point we'll do episodes dedicated to certain avenues of that philosophy, because it is interesting, and they do talk about it sometimes. Particularly about attachment, and Anakin talks about it rather clumsily in Attack of the Clones when he's talking with Padme. I'm not going to regurgitate those lines because I feel like clumsy is a generous way of describing some of that dialogue. But it's not to be. That's not because he didn't have a point. It's not because he didn't have a point. So that's going to be fun to explore. I like that. Again, the Jedi are our heroes, but it doesn't mean that they do everything correctly. And if you've taken the time and you've started reading the High Republic series, you see that as well with those Jedi characters too. They have mastery of the Force, but they don't always understand the Force, and that's interesting too. And the High Republic series, I've only read one book so far. There's not that much out right now, but they seem to explore some of the stranger concepts and some of the Jedi who rebuff some of those concepts, and how the Jedi of that era were a little bit different than the Jedi that we know during the Clone Wars era. Again, we'll talk about more fully about those things down the road. But I think that's why this episode gets a 7.5 for me. Again, the philosophical debate's a little half-baked, and we get a little bit more from it for next week. Or I'm sorry, in the next episode. But I still like that the issues are being raised, that they're aware that these things need to be talked about and discussed and explored. And again, we have 7 seasons. We're going to get to talk about some of these themes more and more, and with a little bit more refinement further into the series. Again, this is season 1. It's not a finely tuned. It's not quite the finely tuned machine that we know it to be by season 6 and 7, and in later seasons of the show. Season 1's still very much about getting its feet under it, and again, they're doing enough stuff correctly. They're doing enough stuff correctly that we all should be optimistic and enthusiastic about what's to come. I've been enjoying this rewatch. It's been a little bit more illuminating than I thought it would be, because I'm enjoying rewatching some of these episodes a lot more than I thought I would. My memories of them were a little bit lower. I had a little bit lower of opinion of them the first time around. But again, perhaps because I've seen the entire tapestry, I know what to expect and how much to enjoy it. So, all right, let's wrap it up. I want to thank you all so much for listening. It's my absolute pleasure, my absolute delight to produce and create these podcasts for you to listen to. I hope you're having as much fun with them as I am. And yeah, they're never going to stop. You will never, ever, ever get rid of me. My name is Tom. This is the Mando Vision Podcast. Remember, we are on all your favorite podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Pandora, Amazon Music, Audible. So many. So many. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and you can spare the time to give us a 5-star review, that would be insanely helpful, and you would have my eternal gratitude. That's it. We'll be back next week. Remember, there's only one way to close out this podcast, and this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.